In late March, the Grateful Dead and thousands of Deadheads converged on Atlanta, Georgia to kick off a 3.5-week tour featuring 16 concerts in 9 cities. Magnificent weather greeted Deadheads in Atlanta. Vendors set up shop in small parking lots near the Omni Arena in the middle of the modern and elegant downtown Atlanta city. Fans made themselves at home in the large plaza in front of the cable news network broadcast headquarters. Many Deadheads took the CNN tour, even going so far as to test out the news hot seat for themselves. Musically, the tour got off to a slow start. The first night featured a Scarlet Fire Estimated Eyes. The second show moved into somewhat higher gear with Franklin's Tower, Stranger, Let It Grow, and a Playing in the Band complete with a reprise. The crowd's enthusiastic chant for Phil was rewarded by a Box of Rain encore. After Atlanta, tour heads took off for the 5-hour, 300-mile drive to Greensboro, North Carolina. When they arrived, they quickly converted the huge parking lot into the familiar Dead Mall. 3-night camping passes were handed out for $9, but tickets were hard to find for the 15,000-seat venue, and scalpers made a killing at $60 a pop. The merchants of Greensboro welcomed the visitors with open arms, but local authorities were not so friendly. Undercover cops dressed as Deadheads were everywhere, arresting over 100 people outside the show, mostly for public and underage drinking. The Greensboro shows were much stronger than the Atlanta shows musically. The first set opened with Bertha into Jack Straw. This set also contained a hot, spacey bird song. On the second night, the Dead gave the 500th performance of Me and My Uncle. They closed the first set with Victim or the Crime into Standing on the Moon, a haunting new Garcia tune. The second set opened with Hey Pocky Way, Truckin', Terrapin, and remained high energy through the Watchtower Mornin' Dew Good Lovin' close. After a day off to travel from North Carolina to Pennsylvania, Deadheads arrived in the somewhat hostile environment of Pittsburgh. Camping was permitted only during the night between shows, and vendors were required to purchase permits before selling their wares. Tickets were scarce for the 17,000-seat Civic Arena, and many people were left outside the show. Folks who had traveled from the East Coast mixed with local college students on spring break in search of a party. Police doubled their forces for the second show, and tensions escalated between the officers and a rowdy crowd outside. Although police estimated 20,000 people were in the parking lot after the show had started, other sources put the number closer to around 2,000. Just after the show began, police were called to investigate reports of gate crashing. Cops donned riot gear and police were called in from around the city. As they tried to drive the crowd back into the parking lot, chaos ensued, and this was the result. One officer is currently under investigation for this incident. Meanwhile, inside the Pittsburgh Civic, fans were enjoying some of the hottest concerts of the tour. The first night included The Music Never Stopped, Shakedown, and Dear Mr. Fantasy into Hey Jude with verses. The second show featured Jack-A-Row and Tom Thumb's Blues in the first set. The second set mixed it up a bit, kicking off with Blow Away, Estimated Profit, Crazy Fingers, Uncle John's Band, and finished with a double encore of Johnny B. Good and Black Muddy. In contrast to the heavy-handed Pittsburgh police, the law enforcement personnel in Ann Arbor were low-key and helpful. The police were kept busy, of course, with Michigan basketball fans whose team had just won the NCAA championship. Rabid sports fans overturned cars and smashed windows, making Deadheads appear harmless in comparison. The Ann Arbor show was the only college campus performance on the spring tour. Although thousands of college students on spring break hung out in the vendor area and inside the show, the scene remained calm. Tickets were still available for the first Ann Arbor show, while the second show was sold out. Camping was available for 2 nights, and the vendor village hummed into the early morning hours. The media tried to capture some of the atmosphere for the evening news, while Deadheads just did their thing. The Dead brought out some interesting tunes for the first show, including Candyman, Dupree's Diamond Blues, U.S. Blues, and China Doll. The second show opened with Touch of Grey. The second set raged through Scarlet Fire and Playing in the Band into Garcia's Built to Last, rumored to be the working title of the new album. The set closed with another Playing in the Band reprise. After the 7-hour drive to Cincinnati, Deadheads encountered the coldest temperatures on the tour. Camping was allowed at the Cincinnati Union Terminal, and shuttle buses carried deadheads to the Riverfront Coliseum. Coliseum tickets sold quickly, and scalpers were abundant, selling tickets for $45 or more. The police in Cincinnati were well prepared for the deadhead invasion. The Riverfront Coliseum was the site of the tragic deaths during the Who concert in 1979, and with the bad press following the Pittsburgh show, the police were on their toes. Highlights of the Cincinnati show included Dear Mr. Fantasy, Hey Jude, and A Box of Rain Encore. The weather was absolutely gorgeous in Louisville for the first Kentucky Dead show in 11 years. Camping was permitted along the outer edges of the state fairgrounds for $10, with bathrooms and showers available inside Freedom Hall. Unfortunately, many deadheads failed to realize they were in conservative territory, and undercover cops made plenty of busts inside and outside the hall. The Louisville show highlights included a first set close of Foolish Heart, and the second set appropriately kicked off with the classic Louie Louie. During this initial tour of 1989, the Grateful Dead sprinkled new tunes throughout some well-mixed sets. Noticeably absent were Gentlemen Start Your Engines and Believe It or Not. Despite the police troubles that plagued the tour, Deadheads continued to do what they do best, creating a colorful, joyous village wherever they went, delighting the local media and providing a spot of color in some otherwise gray surroundings.